that comes. The more you read, the more you study, the more stories I share with you, you'll pick those things up. One of the handouts, and I don't know if the new girls have this, if not we should make this one for them, is I have a box and it has like threads. Okay, so it was one of the first early handouts I gave out. It's probably in there. Threads you're gonna find: socioeconomic status, religion, a gender, you know, like do men mean more than women in certain families, things like that. If you can pick up those threads, financial threads, how important is the finances, if you can pick up those threads from a client in their story, you can identify their story. Okay, you can identify symbol, and people speak in symbol. I know this one woman who all she ever talks about, and she happens to be a finance person, no coincidence, she's an earth element all the way, I've never seen her chart, is she speaks in calories and she speaks in dollars. Everything she says is how many calories and how much money. That is an earth person. You need to speak logically to this person. You need to speak in quantitative things to this person. If you start giving this person some touchy-feely stuff, you are going to lose that client. So those are the symbols that you're going to listen for when someone speaks. Okay? So today when we do the elements, we're going to be working with the element symbols. And that's one way to communicate. So let's open our symbol dictionary. And pottery. What does pottery represent? And think.
I
There's
can't
a story.
believe you picked that.
Okay. So she has a story.
I can't believe you picked
Tell
that.
me, what's the story? Wonderful.
You saw me on my phone, you said pottery, I'm like, no way. I have always been super creative. So I like art, everything that's creating. So like painting, drawings, and I went to a pottery class. When I got there, I was really nervous because I was like, okay, there's people here that, you know, they've been here before. They have a monthly thing, so they come very often. And I was like, there was only like 2 of us that were, you know, new. So we started doing this stuff. She explains how to do it. I started doing it, and it turned out really good. And the instructor, she asked me, have you ever done this before? And I said, well, no, this is my first time. She's like, oh, you're a natural. You're doing really, really good. I'm like, well, thank you. But I remember, after that, I went just like 2 times after that because I couldn't afford that. It's pretty expensive. So anyways, me sitting there, and it's like, it's a specific posture that you have to be on. So you need to have control of what you're doing with your hands. So even though you're using your hands, you're not doing this, because otherwise it goes all over the place. So you're supposed to be like, you know, elbows in, and like your hands are supposed to be hard. So it gets to a point that, you know, your back starts aching, your hands, your thumbs, everything just starts hurting, your legs. So it gets to a point that it's really difficult. And I keep thinking to myself, and I see this clay just going up and down, sideways, in, out, and I'm like, damn, this is what life is, because it's so hard, and you get to a point that it hurts so much that you just want to give up. But I kept telling myself, I'm not gonna give up. I'm not gonna give up because I have to finish this. This is gonna come out really good, and I have to be able to finish it. So I'm gonna suck it in and finish it. And ever since that moment, I went home and I told my mom, and I'm like, Mom, I just had this crazy idea of, while I was doing it, what if life, it's clay, and you're supposed to build something out of it, and your body is tired because you keep trying and you keep mess it up, and you gotta start all over again, and you gotta get more clay and more water, and if you put too much water, it goes bad. If you don't put enough water, it goes bad. It's like, Mom, it's amazing what I just figured out. That life is so hard.
She just figured out a metaphor for life. That is something you will never forget and
Never.
you can use with a client.
Never.
That story is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Phenomenal.
I got so emotional when I was doing that, and I'm like, oh my God, this is my life. This is my life. I
And you
keep
turned
trying.
out well, and you got compliments
I
for
know.
it. How amazing! That
Yeah.
story. That story is amazing. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
talk about a metaphor.
Yeah.
So you could bring in something like that and ask a client a story about what they think about this one word or what's a metaphor for pottery. And think, like watch them think about it. And then you just happen, I mean, you lit up.
I did.
You lit up.
I did. That was me. Like I just connected so deep with that clay that it's like, holy
that
shit.
epiphany right there.
Like, yeah, I did. It was because that was the time that I was, so depressed, and I realized, this is my life, and I have control over it. It depends on my hands. If this shit goes down, up,
Yes.
sideways, this is me. And even though I'm hurting right now because I was so depressed and having all those thoughts, I was like, this is me. I have control over it completely. And even though I'm hurting right now, I know the outcome is gonna be wonderful. So I have to finish it. And after that, it was,
How long after that did you get the job with the little boy?
oh, that was a while, but it took me a few months, not a year, but it maybe 6 months, maybe.
And can you see the influence that you're having in his life as the potter in his life?
Yeah.
And you can buy clay.
Oh, I have it. I just
That you can
I have
build
to buy
without
the
the water.
I would have to buy the wheel
No,
because
but
the
you can
clay that I
also
have is for the
create
wheel.
clay with your hands.
I have the two types. I have the
Oh.
dry one and the wet
Yeah.
one. But the wet one, I need the wheel for.
Right.
And I can't afford that right now. But I will. One day when I have enough money, I will.
They have tabletops because I bought one.
Mhm.
It's like a kid's craft kit.
Yeah.
But they do have a wheel that spins around, and it's not very big, but you put it on the
Mhm.
table or something.
What a great assignment.
Yeah.
What a great homework assignment for a client. To send them to the craft store to get some clay. I have two stories about pottery that will tell you some things about myself. So my last name is Yahia. I'm usually the last one in the alphabet, unless there's someone with a Z. And when I was a little girl, I went to camp, and it was backwards day. And they let the people at the end of the alphabet pick first, and we were actually doing pottery. We weren't creating it, but we were taking it off the shelf and getting to paint it and stuff. And they went straight to the W's. And I raised my hand and I said, I'm Y. Like, they didn't think that there were any Y's or Z's in the class. And I said, I'm Y, and I got to go first. And it was one of the only times in my life that I got to go first. If someone shares that story, let's say you're telling me your pottery story and I'm telling you, what are you hearing in me?
You
What
got,
am
you
I-
got you got that chance, like, hey, I'm here, like I exist,
Okay, so there's perhaps don't overlook me.
Yeah.
I have enough fire in me so if I'm down and I'm very depressed right now, and I share this story with you, there's something in me that you can help me pull out of myself that says, wait a minute. When you were in 3rd grade, you stood up and said, no, don't overlook me. That means I still have that fire, because that's fire, in me right now. It might be blunted. The water might have me drowning. But somewhere in me, there is enough fire that I can say, and you can pull that out of the client. You can help the client. But wait a minute, in 3rd grade, you were able to stand up for yourself. In 3rd grade, you were able to say, I don't want to be last, or don't overlook me. And there's also a symbolism there about someone being last all the time. What does being last represent to the client? What does last being represent to me?
Being forgotten.
It could be, and that's a question you can ask. What does being last all the time represent to you?
What does it represent to you?
Definitely being overlooked, or not being part of something, like being an outlier. when we talk about statistics, we have a bell curve. Most people fall in here. It's funny because my kids are the letter L. They're always going to be in the middle. They're not going to be an A or a Z. They're going to be an L. They're right smack in the middle. But the letter Y is over here. It's very rare that somebody has a last name with the letter Y. And I don't have Young. It's not like an easy last name, it's Yahia. So if I can make my name stand out, people are going to remember. But you have to do a lot of work to maybe get noticed. And I think that that's a big thing that happened to me, is why I was so loud and why I always tried to do so much. And now I'm not getting noticed. Now I'm just rotting. I feel like I'm rotting away. This is like the highlight of my week, is teaching you guys. I'm in a really bad space. So for someone perhaps that had to work so hard to stand out, and I don't have that energy right now, what do you do with this client?
Maybe it's more like blending in. The fear of blending in, because you go from one stage of your life where you stand out, you're doing all these things, and then suddenly it starts slowing down. So you're like, okay, now I'm blending in with everyone else. This is what this feels like.
Very true about me. And if you ask me my trauma from 0 to 7, I was in the cult like the preferred kid. And a few of us littered the neighbor's pool. And I was told, I told you the story before, I was told I wasn't going to be able to go to these special events that none of the children were allowed to go to, but only me. So it is absolutely fear of blending in. And fear of forgotten and all of the stuff that you're saying. You can see the thread. But what does it mean to a person when they're always on the outside?
They have to fight to be seen.
Okay, but what about
They need to
connection?
be in though. They need to be. It's like when you said outside, I imagine a home, and you're like from the outside looking in.
Right, so
you
you're
wanna
never
be
part of something. And that's how I feel right now. What am I a part of? I feel like I have zero connection. And that's why my friend getting this job, I was like, oh my God, he's gonna have new friends, he's gonna have a new group of colleagues. The being part of something is so important. So you would give your client an assignment to become part of something, maybe to go out and meet new people. Maybe that's not that easy, maybe that's too hard. So I gave myself an assignment, and on Thursday I am going to force myself to go to a group and go. Because I know what I'm missing, I know what my needs are. I'm in this field for a reason. I have to be able to do something for myself, right?
But you are though. You teach us and you have your clients and, I mean,
But what's the difference between me and you guys and me and my clients? Where, you have certain boundaries that you have to withhold. I can invite you all over, but that's really not what my boss would want,
Oh, come on.
And my clients have become very dear to me because it's been many years and we share very intimate things, but there's a boundary there. So it's difficult when your client sees you in such a deep depression. And my clients really, they know that I now beat cancer for the second time, they know that I went through a divorce, they know that I'm going through, this empty nest syndrome, that I'm in a difficult place, and because I have that rapport with them, they're working with me. But really, there's a distance or a boundary between students and clients. There has to be a level of connection that I lacked. So you bring your client into the mainstream, and then what can happen to someone who's always been in the mainstream? Maybe that person wants to be on the out, and then you have them do something que sobresalga that makes them stand out. So you see how one story
And define everything.
can tell everything? All I did was share with you when I was at camp at OGIS, and I was last. And they almost overlooked me. I didn't stand up for myself. So, you're hearing in the person, that's the fire element. Even though I'm a water, I have some fire. We all have all the elements, except one of you is lacking one. Okay. So when someone's lacking an element, you know you have to help them with that one even more. But somewhere in me, there's fire that in 3rd grade, I was able to say, wait a minute, I'm a Y, I go first today, it's backwards day. And you can pull that out with your client. You can say, if you could do that in 3rd grade, that exists in you, let's find it now. And you help them find it. And those are the small steps that you help them do. Does that make sense? You see how it's just a conversation and something as simple as a pottery, a symbol. So in your symbol dictionary, write down pottery. Pottery is a really good metaphor for life. And I appreciate Ella sharing the story because it really made an impact. And one of the nice things about sharing here is that you can use these stories. Remember, there are no new stories. You can use these stories with your clients. You can go, I have a classmate, or I have a colleague, or this happened to me, or I read it in a book, or this happened in mythology. Do you know about the story of Nicodemus? Do you know about the story of Inanna? And you share stories. People learn with stories. They remember stories. They may not remember all the specifics, but we're never going to forget Nellis's experience with the pottery
Actually,
and how she
encouraging.
found a metaphor for life there.
Kind of
You have
encouraging
to
do
stand
it.
in a certain position.
You're just
So
like-
there's hard work. She had to sit in a certain position, and you might have to be in a certain position that you don't want to be and beat down. Look at the gesture she made. You might get beat down, but even when you're getting beat down, you have
Gotta
some
work
control. And that was Viktor Frankl's entire thing. A man's search for meaning, existential theory. I mentioned this before. He was in a concentration camp. No control, getting beat down. But he found that that experience was going to be meaningful. I have to find a meaning in what I'm going through. You help your clients find meaning with what they're going through. And it could be as simple as that metaphor with her pottery wheel. Beautiful metaphor for life. Thank you so much. Because that's something that we'll never forget and we can use in a session with someone. And you can send them to go buy clay
It makes them.
and make something. And no matter what they make, because I would make like a stick figure or something because I have no creativity, I made it.
Stick figures are fun to make. I've made those. I made
So
those
there's
in
still
class.
some fun. And remember, all new birth comes from what chakra? Super important. All new birth. What chakra? What chakra do we birth? The second chakra, the sacral chakra. What does it mean when we have a new birth? What has to happen for there to be a birth?
Sex. No, I'm just kidding.
Sex, yes, sex is creativity, but what don't think of metaphor. What has to happen, we
You have
took
to
class
die.
last month,
You have to die to be.
something has to die. Something has to die. So when you give a client a ritual or a ceremony, when you give them something to do, you're basically helping shift the subconscious that they're building something new, they're creating something new, and sex is right, but the act of sex isn't the only thing that births. All of it comes from the second chakra, the color orange. So that's a color that you can give your clients to wear is the color orange. You don't like the color orange. It's so funny because on Saturday I had a really, really hard day. And I wasn't feeling well, I was just post-op. And Sunday night, a friend of mine moved and she invited me over to her new apartment. And I was trying to get out of my funk. And she handed us orange napkins. And I thought of that. Just in that moment, I thought of, oh, this is a symbol. This is a metaphor. This could be the beginning of something new for me. This could be a birth. Just because I know the meaning of the color orange. Who the hell's gonna have orange napkins? It's like the weirdest color napkin to have. She probably bought it at the dollar store or something, but who cares? At that moment, I was able to connect, even if just for a split second, and say, wow, there must be some meaning here. And that's what we're doing with a client. We're trying to get them to connect for just a second in that session with some meaning of something. And you share story, you share myth, you share symbol, you share metaphor. And that's how they start to make connections. But in order to birth something new, something must die. And it doesn't have to be a major death. We lose our, I don't know for the medics in here, how quickly, don't we like lose our skin and our nails and hair is all like dying constantly?
Yeah, you're always shedding skin.
You're always shedding. You're always dying parts of you. Your whole body, I think, is renovated, all new cells in a year or something like that. So if we're constantly shedding and killing our old cells to renovate new cells, things are constantly dying in us. Death is difficult. We talked last month. It's detachment. It's letting go. We did that meditation with the breath. The other day someone said to me, you're not even breathing. I hold on so hard. That's a very water symbol. Attachments is a water person, and I'm very water. People that can let go quicker are more fire, more air. Mr. Apache, your sister, who you say she says it, and she's done. Very air. I got it out, and I forgot about it. The other person's like, dying. But she said it and got it passed. And if you have a client that shares that with you,
And replay.
right, replay, that's me. I replay. I record all of my sessions for my clients. How water is that?
But doctor, I'm sorry, but water is life. Where you should use that, try to change that, and I would be like, hey, water flows, that's what keeps everything.
Absolutely.
in earth
And we're gonna
alive.
see the positive of the elements in a
Right.
minute. Because each element also has positive, we need it.
Right.
Water is life. What's your first home as a baby? The womb, your amniotic fluid. And we have a myth from Greek mythology. Uranus was castrated, and what happened? Do you remember? What happened when the sperm went into the ocean? Who was birthed?
Aphrodite was born.
Aphrodite was born. The woman. The woman is the only one that can give birth.
That's crazy.
But it's a story. And you share that with a client. And so someone like me, who's so down on herself for being so water, says, wait a minute. I'm water, but I'm also the one that has life. That means that there is a potential for me
For a new birth.
for a new birth. And this is not where I'm going to stay for the rest of my life. And you tell that to a client, someone like me in my position right now, and it says, oh, okay, then this water is positive. Yes?
I have a question. Does that mean that the ocean is there represents like the womb and, since, fluids, things like that?
Yes, oftentimes the ocean, of course, metaphor, symbol, can represent the womb, represents life, and that's why I share that story of Aphrodite. And there's a famous painting called The Birth of Venus by Botticelli, where she's coming out of a conch shell. What's the conch shell represent?
The womb.
No,
No.
like
Isn't that the one that
The vagina.
blow up?
I'm gonna use little kid words.
The conch shell represents the vagina. She's birthed from the sperm.
Oh.
Uranus, the sky, is castrated, his testicles fall into the ocean, the ocean sperm, you see the foam, and Venus is born in a conch shell, which is the vagina. Because from the second chakra, all things are birthed. What element do you need to birth something new besides water?
Air.
Earth?
Fire.
Fire, but why?
To put out the wall. No. My bad.
Because fire represents the beginning.
Okay, fire is the passion of something new. And there's a story, a myth. Anyone been to New York? What's in the middle of Rockefeller Center?
When you said that,
Prometheus. And he's holding a torch. And he stole the fire from the gods and brought it to humanity. Because fire represents transformation. When you eat food, you swallow your food. In the fire, the digestion, it is broken down into protein, fat, carbohydrate, the nutrients that you need. So fire is transformation. So when you can pull the fire from someone and find fire in their eyes, fire in their life, fire somewhere, don't overlook me. I'm the letter Y, I should pick the pottery first. You pull that out of your client, you go, wait a minute. You found the element of fire. You found passion, you found transformation, you found the ability to speak up. That means you could do it again. Because there are no new stories. If your client has done it before, he or she could do it again. It's in them. And you give that person hope that again, I will stand up for myself and say, wait a minute. I belong. I go first. There's hope. That's what we're listening for. That's why when people are sharing stories, don't be so focused on the next question you're going to ask, because we get very nervous. Let them talk, like Mr. Pachi always says. Let them talk. They are sharing. They are telling you stuff. And in one story, you can get so much from a person, especially if they're younger stories. But just like the story of 0 to 7 is here, 28 years old, links back to 7, links back to birth, links back to conception, because they're living one story over and over and over again. And our job is to help them rewrite that so they don't get stuck in it. Okay, that's the important of these things. So archetypes are the costumes. And every single person has these archetypes in them. That's why every single one of you in your astrology chart, can I borrow that? Has the same exact planets. Nobody is missing Pluto. Every single person has a Pluto. Every single person has a Jupiter. Every single person has a sun and a moon. Just like every single person has a liver and a pancreas and kidneys. Some might be distorted, some might be deformed, some might need to have had surgery and taken out one kidney. Same thing with your chart, the way you're living it. But your psychological organs are there. So everybody has the potential. Everybody has the potential. And even when you're missing an element in the chart, like Nellis, what element are you missing?
Whoa, I got 1 on fire.
Oh, okay, so
Well,
you're not missing it. But
right.
someone had a 0 on one of them.
I think it was
You do?
one of. Who was sitting here? Oh, it was you and her.
Someone
I think
had
you
a
got
0.
0 on.
So if someone is missing
Oh,
an
no,
element,
we got a 1.
I got a 1 on fire, so.
okay, but you had it. But if the client is missing, they have a 0 in that particular element, you try to bring that element to their life. You give them homework, you have them hang out with people that have that element more, you have them go to that element to become friendly, to bring it into their life from the external. I'm missing a lot of earth. I only